Tiikamang kisipik kita. Bis matara chimikal sakte ho. Min chikula che bel se tadik kana. Porano del bhag.
You can come out now.
You alone in here?
Always am.
Sheriff's asking around. Sheriff don't eat here.
You can come out now.
She was already on her knees when she realized the sound was not the pipes. It was breathing. Soft. Stuck. Coming from under the table. Her hand closed around the knife without thinking. Not raised. Not shaking. Just held. She leaned down slow, apron brushing the floor, eyes fixing on the dark space beneath the wood. "Hey," she whispered. "I see you." The breathing stopped. The floor creaked behind her and the shape under the table pulled back. Two eyes caught the light. Wide. Wet. Watching her like she was the danger. She did not move closer. She did not pull away. She stayed where she was, knees burning, voice low. "You hurt?" The boy's head shook once. Small. Fast. She swallowed. "You hungry?" No answer. His eyes flicked to the doorway, then back to her. She followed the look but did not turn her head. "You running from someone?" The boy lifted one hand. Pressed a finger to his lips. Hard. His knuckle was split. Dried blood. Not fresh. Learned. She nodded like he'd spoken. "Okay," she said. "Okay." The stove popped behind her. She flinched before she could stop herself. The boy did too. His shoulder hit the table leg and the sound made him gasp. She froze again. The knife felt too loud in her hand. She slid it behind her back and set it on the floor. Slow. Careful. "I'm not gonna grab you," she said. "I just cook here." He watched her mouth when she spoke. Like he was reading, not listening. She shifted her weight. The table was scarred with old burns and cut marks. A place people leaned without thinking. A place nobody checked. "You can stay right there," she said. "I won't make you talk." The boy's breathing came back. Thin. Fast. She heard boots outside. Heavy. Measured. The kind that knew where they were going. The boots stopped at the doorway. A shadow cut across the floor. She did not look up. She stayed kneeling, hands flat now, palms open. "You dropped something?" a man asked. His voice carried the room like it owned it. She shook her head once. "Just cleaning," she said. The word tasted strange. The boy's eyes locked on hers. Begging. Warning. The man shifted his weight. Leather creaked. "You alone?" he asked. "Always am," she said. It came easy. Too easy. The silence stretched. She counted her breaths. 1, 2, 3. The man leaned in just enough for the light to catch his badge. It flashed once, then dulled. "Sheriff's asking around," he said. "About what?" she asked. "A boy," he said. Her throat tightened. She kept her face still. "Sheriff don't eat here," she said. The man smiled without showing teeth. "No," he said. "He doesn't." He stepped back. The boots turned away. The sound faded. She waited. Counted again. When the door closed, she moved fast. She crossed the room and turned the lock. The click sounded too loud. She went back to the table and knelt again. Her voice dropped. "You can come out now," she whispered. Nothing moved. The space under the table stayed dark. The boy stayed still. She watched the place where his eyes had been and felt something settle in her chest. Not fear. Not yet. Something older. Something she had learned to live with. She stayed there with him, knees aching, not looking up, listening to the quiet like it might speak first. The knock was not a knock. It was a presence. Wood didn't move. Air did. She felt it before she heard it, a weight settling in the doorway like it belonged there. She stayed kneeling. The boy stayed under the table. His breath went thin again. She lifted her eyes just enough to see boots and a pant leg and the edge of a coat that had never seen kitchen work. "You gonna answer?" the man said. She stood slow, joints stiff, hands empty. "Kitchen's open," she said. He leaned into the doorway. Light caught the badge on his chest and threw it back at her. Gold. Scratched. Familiar. "You been in here long?" he asked. "All morning," she said. "You alone?" "Always am." He looked past her. His eyes swept the room like they were counting. "Sheriff's asking around," he said. "Sheriff don't come here," she said. "Not for food," he said. "Not for talk." She picked up the coffee pot. It shook once before she steadied it. She poured. The cup rattled. She hated that it did. "You seen a boy?" he asked. She did not answer right away. The boy's breath stuttered. She could feel it through the floor. "Lots of boys pass through," she said. "Not this one," the man said. "Quiet one." Her jaw tightened. "They're all quiet when they're hungry," she said. He smiled again. "No teeth." "This one don't speak much at all," he said. She met his eyes now. "You'd know?" she asked. He shrugged. "I know things," he said. He stepped inside. The floor creaked. The boy flinched hard enough to hit the table leg. The sound snapped sharp. The man's head turned. "What was that?" he asked. "Old wood," she said. "Whole place talks." "Funny," he said. "I didn't hear it before." She took a breath. "You looking to eat or ask?" she said. He studied her face. "You always been good at keeping things running," he said. "Place stays quiet when you're here." "That's my job," she said. "Part of it," he said. His eyes dropped to the floor. "Sheriff likes order." "Sheriff don't set foot in my kitchen," she said. The man laughed once. "Short. Flat." "No," he said. "He sends me." He took a step closer. The badge caught the light again. It flashed like a warning. "You see a kid," he said, "you let me know." She nodded. "Sure," she said. He watched her nod like he was weighing it. Then he stepped back. "Lock up when you're done," he said. "Wouldn't want trouble." "I don't invite it," she said. "Trouble don't need an invite," he said. He turned and left. The door swung shut. She locked it. Her hand shook this time and she let it. She went back to the table and knelt again. Her voice barely moved the air. "You can come out now," she said. The dark did not answer. The boy did not move. His silence pressed harder than the man's questions. She slid the bread under the table like it was a peace offering. Slow. Flat on the floor. No sudden moves. The boy stared at it for a long moment before reaching out. His fingers were dirty. Nails bitten down. He pulled the bread close and ate without lifting his eyes. Chewed fast. Like he thought it might be taken. She stayed where she was, back against the counter, hands folded. "You can take your time," she said. He didn't slow down. She watched his throat move. Counted swallows. What should I call you? She asked. The boy froze. Bread halfway to his mouth. His eyes snapped up. Sharp. Afraid. She raised her palms. It's okay, she said. Just something to say. He shook his head hard. Once. Then again. All right, she said. Okay. She waited. The stove ticked as it cooled. Outside, a truck passed. The boy flinched again. His shoulder hit the table leg. He gasped. She felt it in her chest. I won't ask again, she said. We can skip names. He swallowed and finished the bread. Crumbs fell onto the floor. He brushed them together with his hand and ate those too. She nodded like that made sense. You want more? She asked. He hesitated. Then nodded. Small. Careful. She got another piece and slid it to him. You got somewhere you were headed? She asked. His jaw tightened. No answer. Home, she tried. His hand curled around the table leg. White knuckles. She stopped. Okay, she said. No home talk. He breathed out. Shaky. You don't have to tell me anything, she said. I just need to know how to help. The word help made him look up again. His eyes searched her face like they were checking for traps. I cook, she said. That's all. He nodded once. She let the quiet sit. It stretched. It pressed. Anyone hurt you? She asked. His body went rigid. His head shook fast. Too fast. Anyone scare you? She asked. Same answer. Harder. Anyone wearing a badge? She said. The boy recoiled like she'd struck him. He shoved back under the table, hitting his head on the wood. He made a sound then. A broken noise. She moved without thinking and stopped herself just as fast. Hey, she said. Hey. I'm sorry. He pressed himself into the corner. Hands over his ears. Knees pulled in. She crouched lower. That was my fault, she said. I shouldn't have said that. He rocked once. Then stilled. I won't say it again, she said. I promise. The word promise made his eyes flicker. She held his gaze. Did not look away. You're safe here, she said. He didn't nod. Didn't shake his head. Just watched her. The radio crackled in the next room. A voice broke through the static. Official. Come. She stood and crossed the room in 2 steps. Reached for the knob. The voice said the word boy. The child whimpered. Soft. The first sound he'd made on purpose. She shut the radio off hard. The silence that followed was worse. She leaned against the wall and slid down until she was sitting on the floor again. Close. Not touching. I hear you, she said. He didn't answer. But he stayed where he was. The child stayed under the table, silent but tense. She knelt beside him, hand hovering just above his shoulder, careful not to touch. The radio crackled back to life in the next room. A voice, calm, official, read names of missing children. One of them sounded familiar. She froze. The boy pressed his face to the floor, trembling. They say your name? She asked softly. Static hummed before a low whisper answered from the speaker. They never do. She swallowed. Then how do they find you? The boy didn't move. She whispered to him, they always do. The silence pressed between them. It was heavy, older than the ranch. She thought of other boys she'd seen pass through these halls, children who vanished like smoke, and of women who had tried and failed to stop it. She remembered the stories her mother told in low tones, warnings stitched into ordinary work. Names erased. Memories tucked into corners. Fear normalized. The boy flinched as a chair scraped in the next room. She could feel the shadow of the ranch's reach, how it pressed on him without speaking. "It's okay," she said. "I'm here. You're safe." He didn't answer. His small hand moved to grip the table leg tighter. She let it be. She watched the way the dark under the table seemed to swallow him, and she felt something older stir in her chest. A warning. A promise. A weight of silence she had inherited and now bore again. Outside, a truck rumbled over gravel. She counted its passing slowly, listening to the echoes through the walls. "They always know," she whispered. He pressed his fingers to the floorboards, as if feeling the vibrations might tell him where danger slept. She didn't move. Didn't speak. Waited. The radio spoke again, the voice listing towns and counties, the missing, the lost. The boy finally lifted his head slightly. His eyes, dark and wide, met hers. One word left his lips in a dry, almost invisible whisper. "Don't." She nodded, letting the word hang. She didn't ask him what it meant. She didn't need to. Outside, the wind shifted. The creak of the porch boards echoed faintly. Inside, the kitchen smelled of old wood and frying fat. She reached slowly under the table, leaving her hands just above the floor. Not to touch. To show presence. He stayed pressed back, small, invisible. She let the moment stretch, measured in breaths and shadows. The radio continued its list, indifferent. She counted, whispered, held him there, a fragile shield of attention and quiet. When she finally straightened, her knees ached, her palms sticky from the crumbs. The boy remained where he was, still hidden, still refusing to speak. She looked at the door, then back at him, and whispered, "I'll keep you here. For now." He didn't respond. He simply let the dark under the table hold him, and she let him. And in that silence, the ranch's history pressed down again, old as the boards, old as her mother's warnings. She stayed kneeling, breathing slow, waiting, knowing the danger was never in the open, it had always been waiting. The word "don't" echoed between them, fragile, potent, a tether. Nothing else needed to be said. The kitchen door creaked as she opened it, leading the boy down the narrow hall toward the basement. He hesitated at the threshold, small body pressed into the wall, eyes wide and unblinking. She crouched beside him, hand hovering over his shoulder. "You been down here?" she asked. "Once," he whispered, shaking his head quickly. The air smelled of damp earth and old letters, dust thick enough to make her throat itch. She could hear her own boots on the wooden steps, heavy with care. "Who brought you?" she asked again. His head whipped to the side. He shook it violently, and she knew asking would earn nothing but fear. She didn't press. She led him by the hand the last few steps, letting him grasp the edge of the railing. The basement felt familiar and alien at once, stacked boxes, rusted tools, shelves sagging under old jars, and letters tied with string that hadn't been touched in years. She could feel the weight of the past here, the way memories clung to walls. He moved slowly, eyes scanning shadows as if they could speak, as if they might move. She knelt down, hands shaking as she fumbled with the basement door, sliding the key in and turning it. The lock clicked, a tiny noise that echoed like a gunshot. The boy flinched and pulled back, body curling against the floor. She held her palms open, showing she meant nothing, saying nothing. "It's okay," she whispered. "Nothing's going to hurt you here." He didn't answer, didn't nod. He simply let the darkness swallow him a little, just enough to feel safe. The smell of damp earth was strong. Old letters, brittle and faded, scattered across a low shelf. She thought of her mother, of women who had walked these steps before her, carrying secrets and burdens too heavy for words. Outside, a floorboard creaked upstairs. She stiffened. The boy froze entirely, pressing closer to the wall. She could hear boots, deliberate and measured, stopping right above them. The shadow of a man paused, just enough for her to know he had noticed them. Her hands tightened briefly around her apron, then relaxed. "Stay here," she said softly. "Quiet." He nodded almost imperceptibly, hands still gripping the edge of the shelf. The basement air pressed close, damp and thick. She could feel the past in the corners, letters tied, jars sealed, the faint scent of smoke and flour lingering from years gone by. She reached slowly for a box of old tins, letting her fingers brush them without making a sound. The boy's eyes followed every movement, flicking from shadow to shadow. She whispered again, "No one can hurt you here." "Not tonight." He exhaled slowly, shoulders relaxing a fraction. The faint light from the small window caught the dust motes in the air. They hovered, silent witnesses. Above, the footsteps started again. A pause. Then nothing. She knew the man had not moved, not fully. Watching. Waiting. She held her breath. The boy did too. She whispered his name softly, testing the air. No response. She let it go. Outside the basement, a wind rattled the loose shutter. The house groaned as it always did, carrying weight and memory. She picked up a letter from the shelf, fragile and yellowed. The handwriting was familiar, jagged, quick. She dropped it back down, careful not to disturb anything else. "You're safe," she said again. "Just stay here with me." His small hand shifted slightly, brushing against hers, not meeting her eyes. That was enough. The door closed softly behind them when she looked back. Outside, a shadow moved briefly across the landing, then vanished. The basement held its silence, damp and protective. The boy pressed himself against the wall, finally letting the darkness wrap around him like a shield. She knelt beside him, shoulders to the cool plaster, feeling the weight of every secret the ranch had kept, every child lost and reclaimed. The floor creaked under her knees. Her breath was slow, careful. She didn't speak. She simply stayed, and waited, and listened. The boy's eyes flicked once to hers, just enough to say he understood she was there, and she understood he would remain silent until it was safe. Outside, the world moved on, unaware. In the basement, past and present hung together, fragile, waiting. She whispered again, "Nothing's going to hurt you here." He let the words settle. For a long moment, nothing else existed. Then, above, the faint tap of boots moving on the boards again reminded her of what they were both hiding from. She stayed low, close to him, silent and vigilant, letting the basement absorb their presence, guarding him with patience and the weight of memory. And somewhere deep in the shadows, the house seemed to breathe with them, keeping the secret, holding them both close. The floorboards groaned above them, faint and deliberate. The boy pressed closer to the wall, hands over his ears, small body trembling. The cook stayed kneeling beside him, hand hovering, not touching. Then the voice came, calm, measured, filling the room like it owned every shadow. "You always been good at keeping quiet," the sheriff said, his words drifting through the cracks in the floor. The boy flinched, tightening into himself. She whispered, "It's okay. Just listen." The voice came again. "I hear everything." The boy's fingers dug into the plaster. She touched his shoulder lightly, steadying him. "I cook," she said softly. "That's all." The sheriff laughed, a low sound that carried menace without raising the pitch. "You watch," he said. "Same thing," she replied. He paused, footsteps heavy, slow, pacing above them. "You think no one sees?" The boy's breath hitched. She stayed silent. "I see," she said finally, "and I stay out of it." "No," he said from above. "You watch and you decide." She shook her head. "I decide nothing." The voice shifted, soft, almost conversational. "You know things," it said. "I know enough," she said. "Enough to keep safe." Silence. Only the ticking of the old basement clock. Then a single tap of a boot above them. Sharp. Warning. She froze. The boy whimpered softly. She held him tighter without touching. "Don't," she whispered. The voice continued, distant but deliberate. "I know who's under there." The boy shrank further. "I see shadows," she said. "I see dust. I see you. I don't move." Another pause. The boot tapped again, heavier this time. Years of watching, the sheriff said. You think it goes unnoticed? She inhaled slowly. I do what I must. And what is that? He asked. The boy squeezed his eyes shut. Protection, she said, voice quiet but firm. That's all I owe. A creak of floorboards. A soft sigh. Then the tap again. 1, 2, 3. You're clever, he said. Careful. Careful keeps us alive, she replied. The boy peeked. Small eyes wide, glancing at the ceiling. The sheriff's voice softened slightly. Don't forget. You can't hide forever. She didn't answer. She let the silence speak instead. The basement held them, damp and tight, absorbing every word. The boy's body relaxed fractionally, still pressed to the wall. I know, she whispered. And I'll keep it that way. Another pause. A single heavy step, then retreat. The house creaked, settling. She exhaled. The boy's hands dropped from his ears. His head lifted, a little, just enough to meet hers. Safe, she said softly. He nodded slightly. The weight in the basement lifted only a fraction. Shadows still clung to corners. Dust hung thick. The sheriff's presence was gone but not gone, like smoke lingering after a fire. She stayed kneeling beside the boy, listening for any return. The floorboards were silent. Only the faint hum of the refrigerator, the ticking clock, and their own breaths filled the air. The boy exhaled long, trembling less. She pressed a hand to the floor, grounding herself in the old wood, in the weight of what had passed, what had almost been taken. The basement, memory-soaked, watched them. She whispered, You're still safe. Outside, the wind rattled the shutters. Shadows leaned in against the walls. But for now, nothing moved. The boy's eyes met hers fully, trust building slowly. The house held them, a fragile sanctuary against what waited above. She stayed still. She waited. And for the first time that evening, the boy's breathing slowed enough to count. The sheriff had come and gone, but she knew he had left a mark in the air, in the tension, in the quiet. She let the weight settle, letting the basement absorb it all. And somewhere deep in the walls, the house seemed to acknowledge them, holding the secret of their survival in the shadows. The boy stayed pressed to the corner, small and still, but his eyes flicked to her now. She crouched beside him, careful not to touch, letting the shadows hold them both. Tell me what you saw, she whispered. His hands gripped the table leg above him, knuckles white, trembling. He stared at the floor. They lined up, he said, voice barely audible. She didn't move. Who? She asked. Women, he whispered, head ducked low. Silence followed, thick and heavy, the kind that presses against your ribs. For what? She asked gently, waiting. Quiet, he said. She swallowed. The word carried weight older than the walls around them. She knew it wasn't just a warning. It was instruction, ritual, inheritance. He trembled, lips pressed together, like speaking more could undo him. She let the silence stretch, holding the space, letting him choose what to give. Did anyone help? She asked softly. He shook his head fast. I watched, he said finally. They burned something. Badge. He paused, swallowed. Well. His fingers dug into the table leg. She exhaled slowly, letting it out in measured breaths. It's not your fault, she said. His eyes flicked up briefly. Dark. Sharp. He had seen more than he should have, and it had been handed down to him as if inheritance were a trap. I know, she said, barely above a whisper. I know. He shivered, and she felt it through the floor, through her own chest. They let me go, he said. Quietly. Not a relief. Just a fact. Her stomach twisted. He hadn't run. He hadn't escaped. He had been released. His small body trembled with the memory, and she reached for a rag to steady herself. You didn't run, she said. No, he whispered. They released me. She nodded slowly, letting him know she understood without pressing. The basement felt heavier. Dust hung in the air, motes suspended in the faint light from the tiny window. She stayed close, silent, feeling the weight of the ranch, of its history, of all the children who hadn't come back. "You're still safe here," she said softly. He didn't respond. He only pressed himself into the shadows a little more, curling small, protective, invisible. She stayed kneeling beside him, quiet. The air smelled of damp earth and old letters, of smoke long faded, of things never spoken. "I won't let it happen again," she said. "Not while you're here." His eyes flicked to hers, and she thought she saw a spark of trust, or maybe understanding, or maybe the faintest sign that he believed her. She exhaled again, slow, measured. Outside, the wind rattled the shutters. The house groaned in response. The past pressed on them, heavy and silent. She felt the weight in her chest, in the floorboards, in the dust, and she let it stay. There were things the boy had seen that would never leave him. There were things the ranch had seen that would never leave her. They shared the space quietly, absorbing it, the shadows holding them together. And for a moment, neither moved, breathing in rhythm with the house itself. The boy's lips trembled. He looked at the floor. "Quiet," he whispered again. She nodded. "Yes," she said. "We'll keep quiet, but safe. I promise." He exhaled slowly. One shiver passed through his small frame. She stayed with him, letting him settle into the space, letting the past be past, letting the basement absorb it all. And somewhere heavy and old, the ranch itself seemed to watch, silent and knowing, as if acknowledging that what had been done could not touch them here. The boy shifted slightly, enough to let her know he would breathe without fear, at least for now. She did not move, did not speak. She let the silence stretch, letting the weight hang between them, letting it settle where it belonged. Shadows pressed against the walls. Dust swirled in the weak light. The basement held them. She held him. And in that quiet, the ranch could not touch them. She knelt beside the low stove, the boy pressed into the corner, watching the shadows stretch long across the basement floor. Her hands shook slightly as she reached for the stack of old letters tied with fraying string. She pulled one free, unfolded it, and the brittle paper crumbled at the edges. The handwriting was jagged and hurried, a mother's hand that had carried secrets heavier than words could hold. She read a line, then another, realizing the story was hers too. Deals made quietly. Protection bought with silence. Women who had walked these halls before her, trading obedience for safety, keeping children alive at a cost that could not be named. The boy's small eyes tracked her movements, following the curl of her fingers, the trembling of her wrist. She lifted another letter, letting it hover over the stove. "Your mama worked here too," she whispered, voice barely more than air. He nodded, stiff and hesitant. "Yes." "Did she save anyone?" she asked. The words felt heavy. The boy pressed his lips together. She exhaled slowly. "She tried," she said softly. His eyes flicked to hers, questioning, fragile, searching for confirmation that the stories he had not been told were true. She set the letters in the stove. The air smelled faintly of ash and old paper. She struck a match, held it close, and touched it to the first letter. The paper caught slowly, curling at the edges, flames licking upward. The boy flinched but did not move. She dropped the rest of the letters in, watching them burn. Smoke curled toward the low ceiling. Shadows danced across the walls, reaching, retreating, folding over the boy's small body. She stayed kneeling beside him, letting the warmth and smoke fill the basement. "It's done," she whispered. "It's gone." He blinked slowly. No words. No reaction beyond the shift of his body closer to the wall. She pressed a hand to her chest, steadying herself. The fire crackled, small, deliberate, consuming what could not be spoken aloud. Letters that carried generations of silence, of bargains struck in fear, were now ash. The boy exhaled faintly, a quiet sound, almost imperceptible. She let it linger. Outside, the house creaked with the wind. The old wood moaned, memory soaking the walls, pressing close. The boy's eyes moved from the fire to hers, catching a glint in the orange light. She nodded once. "It's okay," she said. "You don't have to carry it anymore." He shifted slightly, small movement, enough to show recognition without speech. She watched him. Waited. Let the room fill with the smoke of the past burning away. Her stomach ached with the weight of it, but it was lighter now. Letters that told stories of obedience, betrayal, survival, sacrifice all gone. Only ash remained, soft and settling onto the floorboards. She let her hands rest on the edge of the stove. The boy's small hand twitched near her knee, hesitant. "It's safe," she whispered. The words hung in the room, thick with heat and memory. Shadows pooled around him, but he stayed, letting her presence hold him. The fire hissed as it devoured the last of the strings, and she exhaled, steady and long, letting it carry some of the weight from her chest. She glanced at the boy again. No words. Just watching, understanding, fragile trust beginning to form. Outside, the wind rattled the loose shutter, carrying the sound of night into the basement. She pressed her hands into her knees, grounding herself in the warmth, the smoke, the flicker of flame. The boy's eyes lingered on hers, the corners of his mouth tight, unreadable, small and steady in the dim light. She reached slowly and let a piece of ash fall between her fingers, letting it crumble. The sound was tiny, soft, final. She whispered, "All that's gone now." He made no sound, only let the darkness hold him. The air smelled of burnt paper, smoke, earth, and memory. She could feel the weight of her mother's mother, all the women who had walked these halls, all the children who had needed hiding. She exhaled again. The boy's small body moved fractionally closer, enough for her to feel it without touching. The letters burned slow, their ash drifting like time settling. Shadows pressed close, but the room was quieter now. She whispered again, "Nothing here can hurt you anymore." He let the words settle, and for a long moment, the basement held only them, the flicker of firelight, and the soft hiss of old paper giving itself to flame. The house groaned in the wind outside, memory pressing against the walls. She stayed kneeling, watching the last ember curl, letting the boy breathe, letting the past burn, letting the weight ease, if only a little. The hum of engines rolled over the gravel drive. She pressed the boy's small body against the wall, low, invisible, as trucks rumbled closer. Men climbed down, boots cracking against the porch. Shadows stretched long across the kitchen floor. Outside, the sheriff spoke with certainty, voice sharp, carrying authority like a whip. "You give him up," he said. She didn't move. The boy's small hand gripped the corner of the wall. "No," she said. Her voice was calm, flat, but it carried weight. "You don't get to decide," the sheriff said. She lifted her chin. "I do today," she said. The engines stuttered outside. Men leaned against trucks, glancing, listening, expecting her to flinch. She didn't. The kitchen smelled of old grease, dust, and the faint smoke from the burned letters. Shadows pressed into corners, stretching across floorboards scarred with years of work. She took a step forward, letting the sheriff see her fully. He stopped, hand resting on his belt, eyes narrowing. "You're defying the law," he said. "Not your law," she said. "Today, it ends here." The boy pressed himself further back, wide-eyed but still. She glanced at him, then back at the men outside. Her gaze swept the kitchen, the table, the chairs, the stove, the floor. Every scar, every burn mark, every shadow carried a story of obedience, of silence, of children lost. She moved deliberately, hand brushing over the surface of the table. "I won't hide him anymore," she said. Outside, boots shifted. Trucks idled. The sheriff's voice carried again. "You think you can stop this?" he said. "I do," she said. A wind rattled the shutters, carrying dust into the air. She reached for the badge lying on the counter, gold glinting, scratched from years of handling. She picked it up slowly, holding it in her palm. Men shifted outside, uneasy now. The boy blinked, small eyes tracking the motion. She didn't look away from the badge. "This ends with me," she said softly. The sheriff's jaw tightened. He exhaled slow, measured, like the weight of the ranch pressed down on him too. You think you can protect him alone? He asked. I don't need to, she said. He's not yours to take. Silence followed, thick and electric. The engines outside hummed low. The wind rattled the boards again. She held the badge in her hand, feeling its cold metal, its history, its authority. Then she let it rest on the counter, fingers brushing lightly. It belongs here no longer, she said. Men outside shifted uneasily. The boy stayed pressed to the wall, watching. She knelt beside him, hand hovering close, not touching, letting him see she was steady. The sheriff stepped forward, boots clicking on the porch. She did not move. You're making a mistake, he said. No, she said, voice firm. You're choosing to see it my way, finally. Another pause. The men outside looked between each other, unsure. She felt the weight of the ranch press down, history, power, silence. And she let it all hang in the room with her. Then she picked the badge back up, holding it deliberately in front of her. I decide, she said. Not you. Not anyone else. Here. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. The engines hummed. The wind rattled. The boy pressed himself slightly closer to her, trusting, fragile. She let the silence stretch, letting the weight of her defiance settle over them. She held the badge. The men outside didn't move. The sheriff didn't move. The wind carried dust and memory through the kitchen, brushing the table where nothing hid, the stove where smoke had cleared, the floorboards where history had been written in scars. She exhaled slowly. The boy's eyes met hers. She nodded once, quietly. It's over, she whispered. The badge gleamed in her hand, gold and scratched, a symbol of authority now powerless before her resolve. Outside, the trucks idled, engines low, men shifting uneasily. The sheriff's jaw tightened one last time. He stepped back, finally, boots scraping the floorboards. She stayed kneeling, holding the badge, letting the weight of the ranch, the silence, and the past settle in the room around her. The boy exhaled softly, small shoulders relaxing fractionally. Shadows leaned close, then receded. The kitchen smelled of dust and smoke, of history burned away and new choices forming. She stayed still, holding the badge, letting it speak for the power she now claimed. And for the first time in years, the ranch felt uncertain. She led the boy outside, slow, careful, letting the shadows stretch long across the yard. The night was thick with wind and memory. The old well sat at the edge of the property, stone rim dark with moss, water black and still. She stopped beside it, hand resting on the cool stone. This is where it all lives, she said. The boy stayed close, small and trembling, eyes wide. She cupped her hands together and spoke louder, letting her voice carry. Say it. Say what? He whispered, voice cracking. She looked at him, steady and unwavering. Who went in? Who disappeared? Say their names. Silence hung heavy. He pressed small hands to the stone, leaning close as if the water might answer for him. She knelt, careful, voice calm but firm. It's time. The boy exhaled slow, trembling. I saw fire. Badge. Well, he whispered. Women. Taken. He flinched, voice tight, afraid to go further. She did not move. Keep going, she said softly. I can hear. They made them quiet, he said. Breath hitched. His small frame shook, and she reached out, hovering, not touching. It's okay, she said. You're not alone. The air pressed thick, full of wind, rustling leaves, distant engines far off. The water in the well caught the moonlight, reflecting shadows long and thin. Names, she said. Who went in? Anne. Clara. Lila. The names came slowly, stuttered, fragments. Each one sounded like a hammer striking stone. Good, she said. Keep saying them. Let it go. He trembled, small hands gripping the edge of the well. Mothers, girls, children, his voice rose, breaking, raw with fear and release. She stayed kneeling beside him, holding the weight of every word. The wind carried it, the well drank it, the night absorbed it. She exhaled, letting the confession fill the air, shaking out the old silence. "I see you," she whispered. "I hear you." He looked up at her, eyes wide but steady now. He wasn't hiding anymore. Not fully. The well seemed to echo with the truth, the names stretching down into the darkness, carrying memory and reckoning together. The boy shivered, small chest rising and falling. She touched the stone lightly. "It's done," she said. "It's out now." The sheriff stepped back, boots crunching faintly on gravel. Men behind him hesitated. They did not step forward. The wind rustled the grass, carrying away the tension. The boy straightened slightly, small hands unclenching. She stayed low, letting him gather himself, letting the truth settle. "We said it," she whispered. "We don't carry it alone anymore." He looked at her and nodded, voice small but firm. "I'm not hiding," he said. Shadows leaned close to the well's edge, then drew back. The sheriff's eyes narrowed, measuring, realizing the power of the words, of memory, of witnesses speaking truth. The crowd held, quiet, as if waiting for the air itself to respond. She pressed a hand to the boy's shoulder, letting him know she would not let the past reach down again. The well held the secrets now, full and silent. Names, stories, weight all poured in, never to be hidden again. The boy exhaled, long and steady, small frame shaking only slightly. She stayed with him, voice low, steady, letting the air settle, letting the night stretch thin, letting truth sink deep. For the first time, the ranch's history felt exposed, vulnerable, unable to bite or swallow. She whispered again, "You're safe." He looked at her, small and unbroken, finally willing to meet her eyes. And the well remained still, full of everything, knowing, watching, holding all that had been buried. The boy stood beside her now, small shoulders straight, eyes no longer darting. The basement, the kitchen, the yard, the well, they were behind him. The air felt lighter, though still thick with smoke, dust, and memory. He exhaled, slow and deliberate. "I'm not hiding," he said. His voice was quiet, steady, no tremor, no glance toward the shadows. She nodded, hand resting on the cool stone of the well beside him, feeling the weight of everything loosen slightly. "I know," she said softly. "I won't stop talking," he added. She let the words settle in the night. He had taken them fully, claimed them for himself. "Good," she said, calm and firm. He took a step closer, small feet crunching on gravel, boots, and dust forgotten. The stars leaned over the property, faint light spilling on broken boards, on scorched letters, on the water in the well reflecting history and truth. "My name is Eli," he said. No stutter, no hesitation, no apology. The syllables were steady, claiming him, anchoring him. She let the quiet stretch between them, letting the night absorb it. "Eli," she said, letting it roll off her tongue, tasting it as real, as weighty, as final. He looked at her, eyes dark and wide and unafraid. "I won't hide," he repeated, just for emphasis, just to feel it solid in the air. She pressed a hand to her chest, letting the relief settle, letting the burden of silence lift for both of them. "I know," she said. "I know. That's enough." The wind shifted through the trees, carrying the sound of leaves, carrying the sound of a child claiming himself back. She let it fill the space, let it chase away shadows, let it mark a line in the ranch's history. "You're safe now," she whispered. Eli looked out toward the horizon, chest rising and falling slow, and nodded. "I'm ready," he said. Not shouting. Not demanding. Just stating, firm and small, and enough. She exhaled, steady, and stayed beside him, quiet, listening to the night respond with soft creaks, distant stars, and the faint echo of past voices carried on the wind. Sirens began to wail far away, a new presence, different from the ranch, different from the sheriff. She didn't flinch. Eli didn't either. He took her hand lightly, letting it rest in his. No words needed beyond that. The ranch had held its secrets too long. The past had been heavy. But here, now, he claimed voice, claimed name, claimed self. "Let's go," she said softly. Eli nodded. They did not hurry. They walked together, slow, steady. Each step shaking off the weight of silence, each step leaving shadows behind. She glanced once at the empty well, the scorched letters, the ground that had held so many truths, and knew it was enough. Eli's small hand held hers firmly, and she felt the promise of a life unburdened, fragile but real. And for the first time, she let herself believe that the boy, the child who had hidden for so long, would speak again. Not in fear, but in truth. The night held them, soft, patient, waiting, as they stepped away from the darkness and into their own light. The morning came slow and gray, soft light creeping over the edges of the ranch. The fire in the stove had died, leaving only ash and memory. She walked with Eli, small hand in hers, across the yard. The table stood empty. Nothing hid beneath it anymore. She knelt and picked up the sheriff's badge from the counter. Gold, scratched, heavy with history. She carried it to the well, letting it slip from her fingers into the black water. It sank slowly, the splash muted, final. Dust swirled in the faint morning light. She exhaled, steadying herself. Eli's small hand tightened around hers. "You hungry?" she asked. "Always," he said. They walked slowly toward the road beyond the ranch, boots crunching gravel, breath rising in soft clouds. She nodded. "We'll eat somewhere else." He glanced at her, eyes wide but calm, trusting. They didn't look back. The wind rattled loose shutters, whispered through broken boards, carried the ghosts of letters burned and secrets spoken. The ranch had held its power long, had swallowed names, swallowed voices, swallowed children. Now it waited. Quiet. Empty. She let her fingers brush Eli's knuckles, steadying both of them. Shadows pressed along the walls, along the edges of buildings, but they didn't move toward them. Not today. Not anymore. The air smelled of damp earth and ash and faint smoke. She drew a deep breath. "It's over," she said softly. He nodded. "It's over," he echoed, small but firm. They walked side by side, leaving footprints in gravel, dust, memory. No more hiding. No more silence. The well held the past, dark and full. The letters were ash, the badge sunk, the fear evaporating like smoke. She exhaled slowly, letting it all settle, letting the ranch fall silent behind them. Eli's eyes flicked to hers, bright, unafraid. "Where to now?" she asked. He shrugged lightly. "Anywhere," he said. "Anywhere but here." She smiled faintly. "Anywhere," she said. Together they moved toward the horizon, carrying memory, not fear. Morning light stretched over fields and broken boards, over the empty table and the scorched letters, over the well that knew too much. Dust rose in soft clouds. Their boots pressed the earth. The house behind them stood quiet, still, waiting, watching. But nothing moved to follow them. She glanced at Eli. Small shoulders squared, head high. The weight of the ranch and its secrets had passed from them. Only the wind and the morning light remained. They walked, step by step, letting the day carry them forward. Nothing hidden. Nothing lost. Safe. Finally, safe. The sun hung low over a quiet dirt road. Fields stretched wide, golden in the fading light. Eli walked beside the cook, small hand in hers. No shadows followed, no whispers from the past. The air smelled faintly of dust and fresh earth. "You think they'll come looking?" Eli asked, eyes fixed on the horizon. "They won't find us here," she said. Voice calm, measured. "Not if we keep moving." Eli hesitated. "Do we forget it all?" "No," she said. "We carry it. Just, not in fear." He glanced up at her, small shoulders squared. "I like that. Not in fear." They walked on. A farm appeared ahead, smoke curling from a distant chimney. The cook slowed, scanning the land. "We can rest there. Eat. Sleep. Start small." Eli's eyes brightened. "And tomorrow?" "Tomorrow," she said, "we keep walking. See the world we choose, not the one they left behind." A crow cawed from a tree, wings slicing the sky. Eli laughed softly, almost a sound of relief. I haven't laughed like that before, he said. She smiled faintly, brushing dust from her apron. It's a good sound. Keep it. They reached the edge of a creek, water moving slow and steady. She knelt, letting Eli drink first, hands hovering to steady him. He splashed water lightly, droplets catching the sun. See, she said. Life can be soft, too. He nodded, eyes wide, letting the moment fill him. No words of the past came. Only this, the sun, the water, the soft wind, the chance to breathe. She stood beside him. Ready to keep going? I am, he said. Calm. Confident. Free. They walked on, side by side. The horizon stretched open, wide and unclaimed. No ranch, no badge, no fire, no fear. Only them. Only the road. Only tomorrow. The world waited, and for the first time, they faced it without hiding. The road was quiet now, sun dipping low, casting long orange streaks across the fields. Eli, taller now, walked beside the cook. His steps were steady, confident, not weighed by fear. You remember the well? She asked, voice soft, almost a whisper. He nodded, eyes fixed ahead. Every name. Every sound. And it doesn't hurt anymore, she pressed. He smiled faintly, small but certain. Not the way it used to. It's just memory. She exhaled, letting the years behind them settle into the earth. We carry it, but it doesn't carry us. Eli glanced at her. You ever think about going back? No, she said firmly. Some places are lessons. Not homes. He kicked a stone lightly down the path. I like this road. Open. Nobody hiding. Nobody watching. Good, she said. You deserve that. They passed a small farmhouse, smoke curling gently from the chimney. A dog barked, a woman waved. Eli waved back, small hand steady, no fear. Do you think they'll ever forget us? He asked quietly. Some might, she said. Some will remember. But it won't matter. We've lived our truth. That's enough. The wind rustled wheat along the road, carrying scents of earth and freedom. Eli stopped, looking out over the horizon. I finally feel like I belong somewhere, he said. She rested a hand on his shoulder. Then stay. Wherever you choose, you belong. He nodded, letting the words sink. Silence stretched, comfortable, soft, full of the life they had reclaimed. The sun fell behind distant hills. Shadows lengthened, but they no longer carried fear. Only the promise of tomorrow. Ready to keep moving? She asked. I am, he said. Confident. Free. Strong. Together, they stepped into the evening light, leaving the past behind, carrying only memory and each other. The road ahead was theirs. Nothing waited in the shadows. Nothing could follow. The ranch, the letters, the badge, the well, they all belonged to history now. And Eli finally could speak, live, and be.